If you play the same hands the same way every time, experienced players will know what you have. They know how to read your hands because they watch and learn how you play. You become predictable. Everyone tends to play the same hands the same way every time. Even players who use deception, these players tend to deceive with similar hands in similar ways. When faced with pressure, almost every player plays their hand in their comfort zone. When you're in your comfort zone, that's when it's easiest for an experienced player to put you on a hand. Deceiving opponents so they never know what you have is not the sign of a good player, it's the sign of a great player. But you don't need to deceive all the time. Recall that you only need to use deception against good to great players. Loose players won't even know that they're being deceived. I'm about to show you a random way to mix up your betting patterns so it becomes impossible for your opponents to read your hand. You're going to use your cards to tell you what to do. What? If you're in a hand against tight players, you will deceive pre-flop and on the flop. Generally on the turn and river, you're going to play your hand as you normally would. The only exception will be if you have the nuts or a monster, in which case you will continue to use deception on the turn. We're going to cover two types of deception, a basic and an advanced. After we go through a few examples, you're going to be able to develop your own system. When you look at your hole cards, one is on your left and one is on your right. Pick out a side to tell you what to do. I always use my right card. On the flop, I use the middle flop card to tell me what to do. I assign a color, which represents either passive, and the other color to represent aggressive. I use red as aggressive and black to mean passive. If I decide to get in a hand against good players, pre-flop, my right-hand card is red. I am super aggressive. If it's black, I'm a caller. On the flop, I look at the middle card on the board. If I'm still in the hand, the color of that middle card now tells me what to do. I could turn out to be very passive pre-flop and super aggressive post-flop, depending on the color of the card in the middle of the flop. The normal pattern is to forget deception on the turn. However, if I have a monster, I use the color of the turn card to tell me what to do. Here's some advanced deception. When this technique is used, you're going to use the entire paddle, and I guarantee you no opponent can ever figure out what you're doing. With advanced deception, assign a suit to each quadrant of the paddle. I use this pattern, but you can use any pattern you wish. If I am in a hand pre-flop, and if my right-hand card is a heart, you can see that I am aggressive loose. Not only do I bet aggressively, I act like the aggressive loose player. I may throw my chips in, be more loud than normal, but I temporarily assume the personality of the aggressive loose. If the flop middle card is a diamond, and I'm still in the hand, I'm a betting woos. I pretend I'm a rock. If you happen to flop a monster, keep your deceptive pattern intact. If you catch a monster on the turn, I adopt the personality and betting pattern indicated by the suit on the turn. River. No deception on the river. If you have the winner, bet out, raise. The only exception is if you are sure, absolutely sure, somebody behind you will bet. So if you check, you're going to make sure that somebody else is going to bet. Otherwise, don't you miss a bet. You will not always be the best player at the table. The better your opponent, the more you must use deception. In a later session, we will discuss how to place an opponent not just in the paddle quadrant, but in a specific portion of the paddle quadrant. In other words, you're going to be able to gauge just how good a particular player is. In a much later session, we'll show you how to use the suit of your right-hand card to determine how much you're going to bet. This is going to be a supplement to Daniel's small ball strategy, not a replacement for it. Yep, you're going to lose sometimes using this method. If I have pocket aces, both black, I'm just going to call pre-flop. Even if I'm at a table with good players. And my chances of being outdrawn, even by the blinds, go way up. But using this deception method, when you do win a pot, your pots are going to be much bigger than if you played the same cards the same way all the time. In the long run, using deception pays off against good players.